Hey everybody, have you considered starting a podcast? We here at Screwball highly recommend Podbean for getting your podcast out to a larger audience. Podbean has given us the ability to easily bring you Screwball each and every week and all of your favorite podcast services. Use the link podbean.com/screwball to sign up and save up to 35% annually. You can also use the link podbean.com/pro/screwball to sign up for a business subscription. Happy podcasting. Hey everybody, welcome back to Screwball, a baseball podcast, your home for everything baseball. I'm your host Mike Lepre here with my co-host Frank White.
Hey, how's it going?
Now this week on Screwball, if we sound a little different here, that is because we're recording through Skype for this episode and probably the next, just due to some technical difficulties and just not being able to get together in person, has kind of caused this episode to go a little delayed, and we just got to record through Skype here. So if the audio is a little bit lacking this week and next week, that is through just the reason through Skype. But the episodes are going to stay the same. We're going to continue our prediction series here, and we're going to move on to the NL. So naturally, we're starting with the NL East, which is, we started in the AL East for the American League. So we're going back across the country from the East Coast to the West Coast. So the NL East here, in my first kind of look through of it, is a pretty good division overall. I think that this is probably the first division we talked about where I think all the teams are pretty talented, even what we consider like the worst team here. So let's just jump right into it with what I think we both agree is the least talented team in the division is the Marlins. Now, let me read off here the lineup and rotation before I get into it. But the Marlins projected lineup is Corey Dickerson, Starling Marte, Jesus Aguilar, Adam Duvall, Brian Anderson, Miguel Rojas, Isan Diaz, if I'm saying that right, Jorge Alfaro, and then the pitching slot, because there's no DH this year. There's no universal DH, I should say. And then the rotation consists of Sandy Alcantara, Pablo Lopez, Eliezer Hernandez, Sixto Sanchez, Trevor Rogers, and Gio Gonzalez are kind of in the mix for the fifth spot. So first impressions of the Marlins, I think this team is pretty good. I think the lineup's actually the top 4 or 5, even 6 spots are pretty good. Jorge Alfaro's at the bottom of the lineup, but he's a great catcher, I think, at this point. He's a little bit maybe of a higher end catcher because there's not many catchers to really analyze. A lot of teams go with platoon roles or kind of just have the catching spot as more of a defensive position. So I think Jorge Alfaro's a good piece there, even if he's at the kind of the bottom of this lineup. Corey Dickerson's good. Starling Marte obviously is a great player. Jesus Aguilar, if he hits the way that he can, he's going to be a big power threat in the middle of that lineup. Adam Duvall, great guy. He can hit some home runs for you. Brian Anderson and Miguel Rojas are great hitters. They could both give you a lot. So I think the lineup's pretty good. The rotation, I mean, just to shout out Sixto Sanchez, he's kind of towards the bottom of the projected rotation here, but he's going to be really good. So you got guys like him and Sandy Alcantara. Gio Gonzalez, if he slots in at the bottom, is a veteran guy. He'll help out the rotation. Pablo Lopez, Eliezer Hernandez are going to be solid. They're going to be pretty good for them. So overall, I think the lineup and the rotation is pretty good for what we consider possibly like the last place team. But I think that without even going into the bullpen and the bench, I think that the narrative here, like we've talked about with other kind of the weaker teams and divisions, is that the future, I think, is really good for the Marlins. And the fact that they made the playoffs last year and gave some teams some trouble, I think is really encouraging for them, even though it wasn't expanded playoffs. And I think that they're just going to get better. And I think even though I would consider them out of the 4 divisions now we're talking about here, I would consider them probably the best of these like last place, least talented teams in the division. And I actually really do like this team. I think that they're going to maybe cause some problems for some teams. They may be like a spoiler team, to beat some teams when they're trying to vie for a wild card or something. And I could see them really causing problems. So overall, I really like the Marlins, and I think there's a lot to like here and look forward to. You'll get into I know you're going to get into the prospects, more like Jazz Chisholm and guys like that. Even if I don't know if some guys are even considered prospects anymore. They may be on the team this year. So I don't know. What do you think about about the Marlins team that we're looking at here?
Yeah, the Marlins have a decent team. They have some young players who are in the majors already, and some pretty good players, some pretty good veterans. You got Sandy Alcantara, who's a good young pitcher, Sixto Sanchez, Pablo Lopez, Rogers, like you mentioned, Eleanor, or Eliza Hernandez, like you mentioned. Anthony Bass was, a guy they signed. Yemeni Garcia, John Curtis from the Rays, who was, pitched well in the playoffs last year and down the stretch for the Rays.
Mm-hmm.
Ross Detweiler, he's been around for a while. He could, give you a spot start or be a good bullpen piece. Richard Blyer, we've seen him, or Blier. We've seen him, I believe, with the Orioles in the past. A good guy to have, kind of a veteran, just a run-of-the-mill relief pitcher. Sort of pitching's, is young, not terrible, but they got some names there, especially Sixto Sanchez and Alcantara. Anthony Bass is, pretty good in the bullpen, so they got some okay pitching. And get to some position players. Jorge Alfaro is one of the better defensive catchers and consistent playing catchers. Plays pretty much every day. Garrett Cooper, he's been pretty good for the Marlins here. Good power. Jesus Aguilar, obviously, he has great power. Jazz Chisholm is their top prospect. He's going to be really good. So you got him and Sixto Sanchez. They got some young pieces there. John Birdie, good backup. Brian Anderson's been there for a couple of years. He's very good overall hitter. He could take I think it was a couple of years ago, he took a huge step forward. Then he had a little regression, but again, very good player. Miguel Rojas was fantastic last year. Corey Dickerson, he's always plays well. He just seems to get hurt. It's just his only problem.
Yeah.
Lewis Brinson, if he could stay healthy, he could stay healthy and just get his bat to be a little bit more consistent. He's a pretty good player because defensively he's very well. You got Adam Duvall, who's a great veteran player. You've seen him on the Braves and stuff like that. He could play a little third base and then outfield. He's got great power. Starlin Marte is fantastic. He's a great player. Home runs, power, good defense, good steal bases, average is good. I mean, he's a very, very good player. Then you got Mcneil, I believe his name is, Sierra. He's a young player who plays, he's a good outfielder. He's a young guy, so you can see kind of what he develops into. So overall, I mean, they got okay pitching, which is young, and their lineup is pretty good. It's not bad. A lot of young pieces and a couple of veteran guys. So they definitely got a team that can, push these good teams and play pretty well. But nothing, they shouldn't in a normal season with these other teams in this division. It's going to be tough for them to really, win a bunch of games. It's pretty much how it is.
Yeah, I agree.
But, to get into some of the prospects, they have Sixto Sanchez. Obviously, he'll be in the majors. Then they have outfielder J.J. Bleday. Supposed to be very good. We'll see him pretty soon. Another pitcher, Max Meyer. All these guys are very good. Jazz Chisholm, like we mentioned. Outfielder Jesus Sanchez. And pitcher Edward Cabrera. These guys are all top 100 prospects.
Oh, okay.
They're all top 100. They have a great farm system. They're probably top 5 farm system, I would say, in all baseball. Overall, the team, it's like I said, the team itself is not bad. Pitching's okay. It's young. Lineup's not bad. Got some pieces that are young players and they can play pretty well. Some veterans, but overall they're not that great. Their big thing is they have young guys to let them grow, and the veteran guys, they play well. They trade them away and keep building a farm system. That's pretty much where they're at.
Yeah, that's kind of, like I said, it fits the theme of these teams we've talked about. These kind of like last place basement possibly dwelling teams. But like I said, I do think that the Marlins have a good amount of talent here worth talking about, and that the fact that they have even more talent on the way equal to and better than some of these other teams we've talked about, I think that's a really good sign for them, and I could see them kind of rising up in the division here and taking some top spots, or at least giving headaches to teams like, we're going to get into them, but the Braves and the Mets, teams that are pretty good right now. So yeah, if I'm a Marlins fan, I'm expecting a really good team here within the next 2 years, something like that, especially if they start, it is Miami. It's a pretty big market. So if they start signing people too, that always helps. So,
yeah, they got a decent team, they can push some of these good teams. We've seen them last year in a shortened season, make the playoffs and then win a playoff series. So, you never really know, but I could see them really mostly sitting around maybe 70 wins. It's just a very tough division.
Yeah, that's true. There's going to be a lot of cannibalism of records in this division, because I think all the teams are pretty good. So the next team that I want to get into that we kind of disagree on where they're going to place, not that it's a big difference, but is the Phillies. So the Phillies projected lineup I have here is Andrew McCutchen, Alec Boehm, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, Didi Gregorius, Gene Segura, Sean Kingery, and then the pitching spot. Their rotation consists of Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Zach Eflin, Vince Velasquez, Matt Moore, and Ivan Nova as options for the fifth spot. So the Phillies, I think this kind of starts, speaks to the strength of this division. I think this starts us, because the Marlins, I think, aren't really going to be contending for a playoff spot. They kind of snuck in with the expanded playoffs last year. I don't think that they can do it this year, but I think that from the Phillies up, or what you have another team in what you would think is the 4th spot. From this team up, I think all these teams could make a legitimate case for a wild card. And I think that's really impressive that even a team that I think could be like a 4th place team could really give some headaches to some teams and be pretty good. Because, you look at the lineup. Alec Boehm, I think, is going to be a really big star. I think he's really good. I think obviously Bryce Harper we know is good, as long as he doesn't go through his cold stretches like he tends to. Realmuto's the best catcher in the game, so you got him. McCutchen's a great veteran. He's a leadoff guy. If he can stay healthy in kind of his upper age here, he's going to be great. Obviously, Rhys Hoskins got a lot of power, exactly what you kind of want out of a first baseman. Didi's a great leader, I think, or a great clubhouse guy, and he's a great shortstop, obviously. And Gene Segura, you got him batting 7th, and I think Gene Segura is a great player, a little underrated, I think. So the lineup's good. And then, out of the rotation, Aaron Nola's I think he's another really underrated guy. I think Aaron Nola is fantastic. Zach Wheeler, I think, pitched well for the Phillies. I think getting off the Mets for some reason for everybody always works. So it worked for him as well. And then from that, I think the rotation falls off a bit. I think their top 2 guys definitely are top 2 guys compared to the other guy. Ivan Nova, Matt Moore, what do you get out of them? Vince Velasquez, he'll be just kind of like a lower rotation kind of 3.4 ERA guy. Zach Eflin's pretty good. I think that he's obviously better than the other guys I mentioned, but still, I don't think he quite stacks up to Wheeler and Nola. And then out of the bullpen, I think this is kind of where they made a big jump here, was that their bullpen was pretty rough. For a few years, David Robertson just couldn't get his way on the field, stuff like that, guys that they kind of really relied on. But now they got, someone like Archie Bradley's pretty good. I think he's going to be closing games for them. Hector Neris is another guy that can close games. He's going to be a good setup guy. Brandon Kinsler, Jose Alvarado, Tony Watson. The list kind of goes on. The talent they have in this bullpen. I don't think it's like a top tier talent, but they're gonna maybe save some games for the team with a rotation that I don't think quite is all that great. And then they got some depth on the bench too. They got guys like Brad Miller and Andrew Knapp backing up for JT Realmuto. So this team is it actually when I think about the Phillies, I don't think that they have all that much talent, but when you actually look at them and look at the depth chart and kind of analyze them a little bit, I think they're pretty good. Like I said, I don't think that they're going to compete maybe with some, the top 2 teams I have we're going to talk about, but I think that they could sneak their way into a wild card if they play well. And I think that's a legitimate possibility for this team. And then the next one we're going to talk about, I'm not sure you'll get it like you always do. You get into their prospect pool. I'm not sure where they stand with prospects anymore, but if this is what they got and they still have some prospects to come and they can spend some money, I think you could even see this team causing some problems in the East. So, yeah, I don't know what you're thinking with the Phillies. I know you kind of had them a little high. You think of them a little more highly than I do. So, what do you kind of think of with the Phillies?
Yeah, I think the Phillies have some really good talent. Second year under Girardi too, where at least he got his feet wet a little bit last year with a shortened season. I think the Phillies have some really good talent. They could really compete, in the East, and especially for a wild card team. I had them sitting more in the 3rd spot compared to the 4th spot, but they get into it. They have Aaron Nola, who's one of the better pitchers in the NL, true ace. Zach Wheeler, another guy who's really an ace. So they have two great pitchers to start the rotation. Zach Eflin, he's a good middle of the rotation guy. Spencer Howard was a top prospect. So they definitely have a good rotation here. And then your 5th spot could be Matt Moore, which we really don't know what he's going to do because he hasn't been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Vince Velasquez, who is crazy, but he can really throw the ball. He's a very good pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
He's just crazy. So you can get him in the rotation, you can get him in the bullpen. So we'll see. And then you got Chase Anderson, who's another, bottom of the rotation guy who plays, very well. So their starting rotation is really not bad, especially with the top two guys, and then Spencer Howard, who's a one of the higher prospects. You can have possibility of three really, really good starting pitchers.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and then you get into the bullpen. Archie Bradley is a great pickup. Hector Neris is really, for the most part, a good reliever. He's pretty consistent. So ERA might sit around 3, but he's a pretty good reliever, and he's been a closer in the past. Jose Alvarado is one of the better left-handed pitchers in baseball out of the bullpen. Some injuries last year and whatnot have people kind of forgot about him, but he's a guy who has great movement and throws 102 miles per hour.
Yep, absolutely.
So he's fantastic. He's a great pickup. Him and Archie Bradley really helped fill needs for them. Then you have Jojo Romero, who's been there for a little while. He's okay, middle relief pitcher, relatively young still, I believe. So their pitching staff has gotten a lot better. Their starting pitching is pretty good, and their bullpen got better, which was a huge need because they had like a 9 ERA out of the bullpen last year.
Yep.
So, but they get some position players. You got JT Realmuto, who's the best starting catcher or best catcher in all of baseball, and one of the better players in baseball. Power, can run, can hit, for high average. So he's really good. I believe it's Andrew Knapp, the backup catcher. He's been there for some time, so he's definitely a solid backup catcher, kind of like your Austin Romine kind of type guy. You don't mind having him go play some games when needed. Rhys Hoskins, he's weird. He's got some great power, but there's times where he doesn't hit home runs. It's weird, but for the most part, he's a pretty good player. Brad Miller, bench player, can play five different positions. And then you got Alec Boone, was their highest prospect in the recent past here. He's got some great power. He played super well last year when he came up. He's got great potential. He can really crush the ball.
Yeah.
Then you got Gene Segura, who's just a consistent guy. Relatively high average, can steal bases, can play multiple positions. He's a great player to have. Scott Kingery, a former high prospect for them. He could play all over the field, and he's been progressing every year. So he's been getting a lot better. So that's good to see. Didi Gregorius is a good guy to sign back. He played really well last year for them. Defensively, he's one of the better defensive shortstops, and he's a great leader, like you said. But he's just a really good player. You got McCutchen, who seems to be like a great clubhouse guy, a great leader, a veteran. He could definitely help them this year for a longer season. Definitely some of these younger guys, he definitely could work with them. Then you got Bryce Harper, who, he's got all the talent in the world. He's the heart and soul of the middle of the lineup, and really, he's pretty much what make the Phillies go round, essentially. When he's playing well, the Phillies are very well. When he's in one of those prolonged cold streaks, the Phillies really struggle.
Yeah.
And then you got some other guys like Adam Hazley, who's a younger player. Who's he's gonna play some outfield. He's gonna play a decent amount this year. He's pretty good. And Roman Quinn, he's been there for a little while. So you really have a relatively good lineup with some backup players. Rotation is pretty good. You got two great guys. Okay, pretty good guy, and then I got prospects. You never know. And the bullpen got better, which was a huge need for them.
Yeah.
So I think the Phillies definitely have some talent. And then you go into some of the prospects like we always do. Spencer Howard, obviously. Then you have shortstop Bryson Stott. Pitcher Micah Bell. Another pitcher Francisco Morales. And then another pitcher Adonis Medina, who we've actually seen a little bit in the majors. And some of these guys are, for the most part, Howard, Medina, you could see them. You could see them in the near future, if not this year. Their farm system's not bad. A couple of those guys are top 100. They're probably somewhere in the middle, the teens somewhere. But the big thing is they have a shortstop prospect, which obviously Didi's kind of a stopgap.
Yep.
And the rest of these guys are pitchers, which if they're starting rotation, which is a little issue last year, but their bullpen especially was issues, you have 3-4 prospects here that are pitchers. In their younger age, you can have them in the bullpen. And if they pitch well, obviously that could take this team from in the middle of the division towards the top of the division because their bullpen really was the worst in baseball last year, and they still almost made the playoffs. So, the farm systems is not bad. They have pitching, which is their farm system built with pitching, so that's great to have.
Sure.
And the team's pretty good. So, I got them personally more in the 3 spot, But if they play, kind of how we've seen them the last 2 years, they could definitely be more in the 4 spot. But if they play with some of the talent they have, and actually that talent could step up and be closer to what they can be, they definitely could be pushing the top 2 teams in the division and in the wild card.
Yeah, it's kind of the same story with the Phillies here, and then the next team we're going to get into. They kind of are in the same spot where, if they play how they can, they could be really good. But the way that they do play sometimes, it makes you question. Like there's some question marks you got to worry about.
Yeah.
So with that, the next team that we want to get into is the Nationals, who, like I said, I think a little bit more highly of the Phillies than the Phillies. You kind of flip flop. You think that they might be a little worse than the Phillies here. So the Nationals' projected starting rotation or starting lineup is Victor Robles, Juan Soto, Trey Turner, Josh Bell, Kyle Schwarber, Starlin Castro, Yan Gomes, Carter K. Boom, and then the pitching spot, their projected rotation is Max Scherzer, Patrick Corbin, Steven Strasburg, John Lester, and Joe Ross. Now, I think the main reason that I think that the Nationals could be a little higher than them is because if the rotation, there's question marks in rotation for sure. Scherzer's getting older. He's actually probably regressing a bit at this point. And Strasburg, you never know if he can stay on the field. But if those guys do play, if, say, Strasburg's pitching, he's pitching well, Scherzer pitches kind of the potential that he can, I think that the rotation's better than the Phillies for sure. And I think the lineup is the same question. You got Josh Bell now. You got Kyle Schwarber now. Those two guys could give you some really good numbers, some really good power numbers in the middle of that lineup. Or, sometimes these guys tend to fall flat on their face with lower averages and kind of not getting the ball out, especially Schwarber. I think Schwarber is more the one you got to worry about there, but still. And then Carter K. Boom, I think they think very highly of him, and I think that he was a pretty big prospect for them. And he's a question mark too, where if he pans out, he's going to be a great player for you. If he doesn't and he struggles, then there's potentially maybe 3 spots in your lineup that could flip flop between being really good guys and guys that struggle. So I think that's kind of where I sit with the Nationals lineup is that, obviously Juan Soto's a star at this point. He's awesome, young guy. Trey Turner's speedy as hell. He's still got some pop, and he's a great player too. Starlin Castro, me and you always kind of really liked. I know you always like Starlin Castro, so he's going to be good in that second base slot. Victor Robles got some wicked speed, and he's going to be a great leadoff guy. So the lineup is great, and even Yan Gomes in the catching position. Yan Gomes is a good catcher. He's no JT Realmuto for the Phillies, but he's gonna be a good backstop for them, and he's gonna hit okay. And then like I said with the rotation, if you get Corbin, I think is going to be fine. But you don't know what you're going to get with Scherzer and Strasburg, and that's a big question to have because John Lester at the bottom and Joe Ross further at the bottom ain't going to carry your rotation. So you got to have those top 3 guys pitching the way they can. And then for the bullpen, a bullpen like the Phillies was a huge problem for them. They got Brad Hand this year now. He's going to be a great closer for them. And then you got guys like Tanner Rainey, Daniel Hudson, and Will Harris that could really get you, close some games out for you, kind of lock it down at the end there. But even they sometimes tend to be a little wishy-washy. So you gotta kind of watch there. And then on the bench you got like Josh Harrison. If he has a little bit of a bounce back, it's got to be a little better than he's had in the past year. And then Alex Avila, he's still hanging around, so he's going to be a pretty good backup there for Yan Gomes. And then they still got Ryan Zimmerman. He's still hanging around. So I don't know what you get out of Ryan Zimmerman at this point. But I guess for them it's kind of like bringing Gardner back for the Yankees. It's just he's been there so long, and you kind of want to, not that you're throwing him a bone, but you kind of want, he's a big part of that team. So as far as the chemistry, so I think for that reason, I think he'll be a little important. I don't know ability wise though. So I think that the Nationals lineup overall can compete with the Phillies, but I think that ceiling wise, I think that the rotation is what separates them from the Phillies for me. But I think that the Nationals have a bigger set of questions and could have things go wrong more than the Phillies, I think. And although I kind of have them in the more optimistic side, I think that they could fall far. I think that if things don't work out, I think they could fall down in the standings here. Or like I said with the Phillies too, that they could be a wild card contender. I think that they could be that good. It's just we don't know. Like I said, what do you get out of Scherzer, Strasburg, Carter K. Boom, does he come through and be the prospect that you wanted? Do Schwarber and Josh Bell fill out that middle of the lineup? A lot of questions. So I think that the Nationals are good. I kind of want to root for them because I do kind of like the Nationals. And I do like to see a real competitive division in the East. It's just there's definitely legitimate things you got to worry about, especially with the injury proneness of Strasburg. I think that's maybe even the biggest question. So yeah, that's kind of how what I'm thinking of the Nationals and kind of why I maybe have them a little higher regarded than you do. So, what do you kind of think with this team? I know you had them just a hair lower than me.
Yeah, the Nationals, they go into it. They have Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, Patrick Corbin, John Lester, Austin Voth, and Eric Fetty. Those are most likely your 5 to 6 starting pitchers. With Scherzer, obviously he's getting older, starting to get some injuries, a lot of innings on his arm. He's still a very good pitcher, but you can start seeing a smaller regression from him, especially with some of the injuries. So you don't know if he's going to be fully healthy all the time. Strasburg, again, he's never fully healthy. When he is, obviously one of the better pitchers. And then Patrick Corbin's kind of just really, and most teams, he's one of the better pitchers and probably a very, 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 very good second rotation guy. So if he could consistently be good, and even if Scherzer and Strasburg struggle with some injuries and stuff, if you have that consistency, at least you have that one guy who's, where he's solid.
Yeah.
John Lester's a good veteran. He puts up literally the same stats on every team he goes to. If you're going to go look that up, his stats with the Red Sox and stats with the Cubs are exactly the same. Austin Voth, the younger guy, you don't really know what you're getting out of him. And Eric Fetty, if they use him out of the rotation, those are younger guys who are just kind of filler guys for the rotation. But, not bad. Not bad filler guys to have. So then you go into their bullpen. They did get Brad Hand. He's one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. You do have Will Harris, one of the better setup men in baseball in the previous, past years. You have Daniel Hudson, who National fans know well. He closed out the World Series. He pitched great that year. He's relatively a pretty good relief pitcher. And then you have Ryan Harper, who's a younger relief pitcher who you'll see in the middle of rotation. So they pretty much have all, the H fellas, I guess you can call them, because their whole bullpen here is all H guys. They're all last names with H.
That's true.
That was pretty weird. But pitching wise, they just have questions on who's going to stay healthy. How long they're going to stay healthy is their big thing, and then you got to look at who's filling out the bottom and how good is Lester going to be, and then those bottom 2 guys in the rotation, you just don't know. But if Scherzer and Strasburg can stay healthy, then you don't have to worry about the bottom of the rotation as much. If they can't stay healthy, then you need to worry about Lester in the bottom of the rotation a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
The bullpen with Brad Hand, Will Harris, and Hudson are pretty much that's a great 7, 8, 9 combo, or however you want to set it up. So their pitching overall with health is very good, but it's the question mark of if there's going to be health there. Going to their lineup more, Yan Gomes, you kind of know what you're getting out of him. He's more of a 200 hitter anymore, give or take, 220, a little bit of power, but not a bad catcher. Alex Avila is a good backup, so nothing special at the catcher position. They did trade for Josh Bell, who's fantastic. 2 years ago, he was one of the best players in baseball. Last year, he definitely struggled a lot, but with a better lineup and a team that's going to contend more, does that kind of light the fire with him a little bit? Switch hitter, he's a ginormous guy who can crush the ball. Like drive, he hit Pittsburgh in the rain, like 3 feet off the ground, smoked the center field wall. I'll never forget seeing that. The guy's great. He's got some super power. He can play a little outfield if you ever really needed him to.
Yeah. Sure.
Young guy, he's very good. Brought Zimmerman back. So I'll see what that does for the team because, for the most part, there's not much of that World Series team left already. But he's kind of like Mr. National, so that could bring a little heart and soul to the team too as well, bringing him back. And he'll be healthy from having the year off, so we'll see. Might be able to put up okay numbers off the bench.
Sure. Yeah.
You got Josh Harrison, who said he's got to play better than he has, but he's in the past has been a very very good player, and I like Josh Harrison a lot. Versatility, and just a good quick guy to have in the lineup.
Yeah.
Luis Garcia, a younger guy, younger infielder. Carter Keyboom, He's been a high prospect in the past. His prospect tag's kind of done at this point. He needs to kind of show why the Nationals like him, and he has great talent. So we'll see if he can kind of put that together this year. Trey Turner, young guy, great power, or great speed, I should say, pretty good power. Top of the lineup guy. He's another one that sometimes has some injury concerns, but he's a very good player. You gotta love Trey Turner.
Yeah.
Comes up in big spots, always comes up with a big hit for the Nationals.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Kyle Schwarber was a great pickup for them. They got him for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And if he could just play close to what he's supposed to be, I mean, he's fantastic for them. It's just, again, he went to the National League where he has no position. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's true.
And you get Victor Robles, who's defensively very, one of the better defensive outfielders. Great speed. If he can just, make sure he's continues to progress his offense, continue to rise the average and on base and stuff, he'll be a very good player for a while.
Sure.
And then you have one of the best players in baseball, Juan Soto. He's like 22 years old, 23 years old. He's fantastic. He plays great defense, great power, gap to gap hitter, gets on base, high average. He's pretty much the motor of the Nationals lineup. It's pretty much where they're at. And you put him with Josh Bell, Trey Turner, if Schwarber can do something. I mean, you got 4 guys there that are capable of being, a real problem.
Sure.
And then, in the backup outfield they've had for a while, Andrew Stevenson. He's been there for a while. He's just a solid backup outfielder. So the team overall, I mean, pitching wise, again, if they can stay healthy, they're relatively got one of the better pitching staffs in the NL. Even in the bullpen, if they can stay healthy, they have all in all their pitching's probably top 5 in the NL at least.
Mm-hmm.
And lineup wise, they have some question marks. I think that's the big thing with me is there's not as much consistent or like, okay, we kind of know what they're going to give us like the Phillies have. You got Josh Harrison, we don't really know because he's been struggling in the catching position. Schwarber, you don't know, especially you don't really have a position for him.
Mm-hmm.
Carter Kieboom, he's was a high prospect, but is he going to develop? So they have a lot of questions, I think, there compared to where the Phillies, where Hoskins you kind of know, Realmuto you kind of know, Didi, Harper, McCutchen, those guys kind of are more like, okay, we kind of know what we're going to get out of them. Can they struggle a little bit? Can they play better? Yeah, but we kind of know where they're gonna, for the most part, where they're gonna be.
Yeah, agreed.
That's kind of where I feel there. But the Nationals still have a good team. They did lose pretty much their World Series team. You have Strasburg, Scherzer, Zimmerman back this year, and Hudson. I mean that's Soto, Turner. I mean they lost a lot of the World Series team already. And a big punch to them really is the fact that they lost Howie Kendrick. Howie Kendrick was a 300 hitter. He was going to play 2-3 positions, and he was just a guy you could put the top of the lineup, the middle of the lineup. You could sit him. He didn't care. He was just a great, great player. And that's really he's really gonna be missing that team because he was a guy who kind of always hit. And if someone was hurt, you put him in, and you were like, this guy is fine. We have no problem not having, not missing our starter and putting Howard Kendrick in. So that's really going to hurt them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But to get in some of their prospects here, as we always do, the first prospect I have here is a pitcher, Tim Cate. Next one, pitcher, Jackson Rutledge. Next one, do you believe this? Pitcher, Cade Cavalli. Their next one, pitcher, Cole Henry. And their next one, pitcher, Andy Lara. So they're all pitchers.
Wow.
Which is not bad to have good pitching, but they have no other positions. So that is something to look for with the Nationals because you have the team's top 5 prospects are all pitchers, and I believe like 7 or 8 out of 10 are top prospects are pitchers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great to have young pitching and prospect pitching, but they have no versatility. There's no, all right, we have an outfielder coming, we have an infielder coming, we have a catcher coming, especially a catcher for this team. It's all pitching, so that's just a little weird there. And for the most part, their prospects they're not the greatest of prospects either.
Yeah.
So their farm system's okay. They're probably in the late teens, I would say, maybe mid-teens to late teens. But their big thing is they don't have no versatility in their prospect pool.
Hmm.
So that's really kind of questionable. But again, if you're going to have one position to really have too many prospects up, pitching's really the one to have it.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
team's not bad. They have pieces. If the team starts falling, they did a good thing by they had some young pieces. They kept some veteran pieces there to keep the team good. So they did a good job actually keeping this team competitive. But if this team does start to falter, they have pieces they could trade away in, Josh Harrison, maybe Brad Hand, maybe Lester, or maybe, Zimmerman. I would doubt Zimmerman, but some guys they have some pieces they could trade away if the team starts to falter. But the team's got some talent. I just think there's a lot of question marks with them compared to where the Phillies are a little bit more like, okay, we kind of know some of these guys, while the Nationals are like, okay, we don't know what they're going to do at this point anymore. And when you win a World Series, it is very hard to get back. While the Phillies are still, fighting and wanting to get there, while the Nationals are, we won, and they're still kind of like rehabbing that. It seems like.
Yeah. We'll see what happens with them. I mean, they obviously did win the World Series not too long ago, so they're coming off a little bit of a winning, they have pieces of a winning team there. So we'll see what they can do. Like you said, and I said it too, they have a lot of questions. You have to admit, if you're a Nationals fan, you got a lot of questions to iron out here. And if it works out for them, they're going to be definitely in the benefit. But if it don't work out, then they could be a rough season. So we'll see what happens with them. The next team I want to talk about is, to me, usually one of the most disappointing teams, and to their fan base, one of the most, they consistently try to put up like one of the best teams on the field, and then it just something falls through. People start getting hurt, whatever. Obviously, we're talking about the Mets.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So the Mets projected starting lineup is Brandon Nimmo, Jeff McNeil, Francisco Lindor, Michael Conforto, Pete Alonso, Dominic Smith, J.D. Davis, James McCann, and then the pitching spot. And then the rotation options are Jacob deGrom, Carlos Carrasco, Marcus Stroman, Taijuan Walker, David Peterson, Joey Lucchesi, and Noah Syndergaard when he decides to grace them with his presence. So they have 7 options there, for a rotation. And if say you slot Syndergaard there day one, which obviously is not going to happen, but you have your rotation is deGrom, him, Carrasco, Stroman, Taijuan Walker. It's a pretty good rotation, and I think that's why a lot of people are pretty high on them. Is that is the rotation's good, and their lineup is good now, and it's got depth. So obviously Lindor was one of the big splashes of the offseason, if not the biggest. James McCann was a great signing for them because they've had a lot of catching problems. Jeff McNeil is probably one of the better second basemen in the league anymore. He hits very well. Pete Alonso, if he hits as far as power like he did in his first season, he's going to be a great middle lineup guy. You don't expect a high average from him, but that's okay if he's hitting 40, 50 home runs. Dominic Smith, I think, is very highly regarded anymore in the baseball community. I think he is a good player. Maybe in my opinion, a little jumping the gun a little bit, maybe a little overrated, but I think he is very good. I'm not going to take anything away from him. Then you got guys like Brandon Nimmo, Michael Conforto, J.D. Davis. These guys I think that Mets fans are very familiar with, especially coming up through the system. They're very good as well. Michael Conforto, I believe, just straight up jumped AAA, if I'm not mistaken, when he came up. So always very highly regarded as a hitter. So the lineup, I think, from A to Z, from 1 to 9, is pretty damn good. There's not a big hole in it, in my opinion. I think the rotation is solid 1 through 5. I think that if you got Syndergaard slotted in there with the likes of Carrasco, deGrom, Stroman, and Taijuan Walker, then and then your other options are guys like Joey Lucchesi, who I think has yet to really prove himself and could be fantastic. Then the
Sure.
bullpen. I mean, Edwin Diaz is obviously. If you get more Mariners Edwin Diaz, you're going to be good. If you get Mets Edwin Diaz, it's going to be a little rough. But they got Trevor May, who's a way more solid, more consistent guy. Dylan Betances is obviously still great. Seth Lugo is big for them. Guys like Miguel Castro that fit in kind of in the sixth inning, 7th inning spot is going to eat some innings for them. And then, like I said, they got depth. You got guys like Kevin Pillar, Jonathan VR, Caleb Joseph as a backup for James McCann, and Jose Martinez, and then there's an even bigger list than that. So I think that's a big thing for them is depth, because this team, and this is what I want to get into while I'm talking so highly of them, they always seem to get hurt, or guys don't seem to play to their potential, or something goes wrong for the Mets for some reason, and I say it every year to you, and I've probably said it on the podcast, that the Mets have the best team on paper that just doesn't ever come through. I mean, DeGrom in a lot of circles of baseball is almost as highly regarded as considered like the best pitcher in the league. I think when he's at his best, I think he is, or he can be. I think that he's definitely, you got to have him in your top three at this point. I think he's fantastic. Noah Syndergaard's good, but the injury problem is a consistent narrative with the Mets, so you got to worry with him. Carrasco's a great pickup. I think he's a good, consistent guy, great guy in baseball. Marcus Stroman, if this team is a winning team, I think that he's a big guy for them as far as like a morale boost. And I think that even though he's going to pitch good, he's going to be okay. I think that what he does in the clubhouse and maybe for the team as like a rah-rah guy is, I think, a little understated. And Taijuan Walker, I think, is a great pickup as well. I think he's very good for the rotation. So, there's a lot to like here. I think they've been even projected as the best team in the division here. But I have my worries with them because I always seem to be optimistic with them, and they always seem to drop the ball somehow. Little Luis Castillo reference there. So like I said, there's a lot to like. There's really a lot to like here. The middle of their infield is fantastic. The rotation's good. I think they have a consistent catcher behind the dish now. The outfield's good. There's a lot to like, but you just gotta, at this point, especially if you're a Mets fan, you gotta worry that it seems too good to be true. And I think that they are a legitimate wild card team. And if they play as good as they can, they could be a competitor for that top division spot. But I most likely see them as a wild card team, and I don't know. Things could really go wrong for them, or maybe this is the season where things go right. I don't know. That's consistently what is going on with the Mets, is you just don't know. So that's where I'm at with them.
Yeah, I mean the Mets will be the Mets. It's always kind of been the theory,
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, on paper, one of the better teams, talent-wise. Their new owner, new just feeling around the organization, the fan base. That's good to have that feeling, to have that, that difference. That's big. But there's question marks. And before I even get into the players, I mean, I think the questions really revolve around, look what happened with the GM recently, and the Beltron still hangs over. Not so much, but the GM, Mickey Callaway, that's stuff heading into the season. That's just, could it, turn its head? You don't really know. And then their manager, it's not a strength, I don't think. I don't think he's bad, but all these talented guys and the personalities, can he handle it? That's what you have to question. So, but anyway, to get into the talent and the players themselves, I mean, Jacob deGrom, one of the best throwing pitchers in baseball. Marcus Stroman, but he's okay, middle of rotation guy. Syndergaard, we really have no clue what Syndergaard is, especially after injuries and some of his wildness he's had in the past. Carlos Carrasco is somewhat of a consistent pitcher, more middle rotation guy at this point. Taijuan Walker is really good. Pitched very, very well last year. He's a very good young pitcher he was a top prospect back in the day. Joey Lucchesi, who I think is a great pitcher. I think he's really, really good. I think he's gonna be maybe behind DeGrom, their best pitcher this year. I really think he could be that good. This guy's got great stuff. Very funky delivery as a lefty. He's really good. You go to their bullpen. Seth Lugo has just kind of been the man out there. If you talk to Mets fans, they really love him. And then you go to a guy who Mets fans probably can't stand, Edwin Diaz. And I know some Mets fans who just he's just bad luck. It seems like he'll pitch so good. He'll hang one slider. He'll hang one changeup. He'll miss a spot with one fastball, and it's a home run every time.
Yep.
That's the weird thing with Diaz. But last year he really pitched pretty well. So it's a guy you kind of root for, Diaz, because he is really good. And it's just, you see him blow a save or something, and he just shakes his head because like it's the one bad pitch you throw and it costs him everything. Compared to some
Yeah.
guys who throw 8, 9 bad pitches and nothing happened.
Mm-hmm.
So they got Trevor May. It was a good signing. Familia has been there for, I don't know, 30 years. It feels like. This is his second stint there, right? Yeah, he went to Oakland and went back.
Yeah.
Yep. Talon Betances, we've never really seen him too much in the Mets uniform so far with some injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Miguel Castro is a good pickup for them.
Yep.
I've seen him with Baltimore. Kind of has that little bit of weird delivery. But then you got Giselman, who we'll see spot to start. Bullpen, just kind of see him do poor man's Lugo, I guess you could say, out there for the Mets.
Mm-hmm.
So pitching wise, they have really good pitching. It's just that you have DeGrom, and then after that, it's Strowman after being hurt and really being more of a middle rotation guy. Carrasco really more of a middle rotation guy anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Noah's hurt, so you don't know what you're going to get out of him. But he obviously could be at the top of the rotation, but you don't know. Walker, if he pitches like he did last year, he's definitely your number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
In the bullpen, again, some of these names, Dellin, Betances, I mean, haven't seen him much. Velocity is going to start dipping for sure in his career.
Yep.
Trevor May's been pretty good, but we'll see if that's going to be a consistent thing or if that was more like a one year kind of thing. Diaz, as he get better? Lugo, we kind of know what he is at this point. He's pretty good. So they have some question marks for sure, but their pitching is pretty good, and there's depth. There's 5, 6, 7 guys in the bullpen. There's 4 or 5 guys in the rotation, so they have some pieces, which is good.
Sure.
They can kind of overcome some injuries if they have them, which if you're the Mets, you kind of have them. It's just how it is. But to go into position players, I mean, James McCann was a good signing. Is he the catcher we've seen the previous year or two, or is he the catcher we've seen the 4 or 5 years before that?
Yeah.
Kind of like the Gio Urshela for the Yankees kind of thing. Is he that guy who batted 220, or is he that guy that's batting 270?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
See with that. Pete Alonso, great power. Can he, make sure his average stays somewhat up and get better defensively at first base, because defensively he's not that great at first base. But we'll see. He's got a great power, but you got to be an all-around hitter a little bit if you want to be, the best hitter or key to the team like he's supposed to be. You want to be a little bit higher average, but we could see that out of him for sure.
Yeah.
Dominic Smith, for some reason, was ranked very high in that top 100 players list. He is a good player. He was a high prospect. He should not have been like 60 where he was. That didn't make sense because he's not better than Jake Flaherty or those guys. So I don't know why he was there, but that's that's not his fault. He's a good player though. So we'll see. It's just, where do you place some of these guys, which is always the Mets' problem. They never have a guy that actually plays that position defensively. They always just put them in a position, and then that hurts them. It hurts their defense. That's kind of where we are at Dominic Smith. Really, he's probably a DH first baseman, but where do you put Alonso? So then you go into their next player, Jeff McNeil, is probably one of their best, probably their best hitter, their pure hitter. Kind of like their LeMahieu, their 4 years ago, Daniel Murphy kind of player. He's that guy. Another one, where do you play him now? Are you going to play him at second, which is kind of more of his position, or are you going to put him in the outfield where he's not really much of an outfield? He's not bad in the outfield. He's made some good plays, but he's not really an outfield. He's more of a second baseman. We'll see. Jonathan Villar is a great pickup. A backup who plays multiple positions, got some speed, switch hitter, does a lot of things. He's the kind of backup you really want and really need. Jose Martinez, who, hits the crap out of lefties.
Yep.
He's been good in the past. J.D. Davis, this is their new Daniel Murphy, where he plays good for them, but they never want him. They never give J.D. Davis the starter. Like, hey, he's a starter, we want him. They're always like, we can always upgrade that position. And then they're just like,
Yeah.
Davis batted 290 last year. Whatever. But again, where are you playing him? Are you going to play him at third? Are you going to play him in the outfield? Does he have a real home? We don't know. The one guy you do know, Lindor, I think they're going to keep him at shortstop. I think that's I think you could kind of write that one in. But he's very good. He's going to be a big piece in a big market in New York. With that smile, he'll fit in there well. They just got to sign him, otherwise they lose that trade for sure.
Yeah.
He kind of gives me them the Reyes vibe with New York. Remember Reyes was young with the Mets,
Yeah.
with the big smile and stuff. I think he'll be a little bit more energetic and a little bit more fan friendly than Reyes was. Even not saying Reyes wasn't, but Lindor is really fan friendly and really, you know, ready for the camera kind of thing.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Brandon Nimmo just runs all over the place.
Hmm.
He's like Forrest Gump for this team. You get Kevin Pillar, great defender. Alvarado Mora was a pretty good pickup, young player, or relatively young player who just never really had a full-time gig yet. Then you got Conforto, who he came up, played really well, struggled a lot, and last year about like 330, which is a little, I think, I wouldn't expect that again. But definitely a 280 to 290 hitter, could be a 300 hitter with some good power. So he's a good player. So overall, I mean, their pitching is good. They got depth there. Their lineup is very good. They got depth there. The thing you got to worry about is who's playing where and how much playing time are you going to give. Villar's used to being a starter. Alvarado Mora is going to want to start. Kevin Pillar is probably going to want to start. Jay Davis deserves to start. Where are these guys going to play? What position are they going to play? How good is their defense going to be? That's always been a problem for the Mets is their defense, especially if Syndergaard comes back. You need a good catcher because they had issues at World Series year. They didn't throw anybody out at catching. So you got to have a good catcher with some of these guys who have longer deliveries to the plate. It seems to be their Mets kind of mantra. But you got to find positions for these guys to play. You got to have a good defense. Who's their center fielder? I mean, if Dominic Smith's playing left field, let's say McNeil's playing second. Let's say Davis is playing third. Conforto's playing right. Is Almar your starting center fielder? Pillar? Those are actually more center fielders. Good. Because Conforto shouldn't be playing center field. He's not a center fielder.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure you have a center fielder. Can you put Nimmo there? Probably, but you got to make sure you have a good center fielder who can actually hit. And the Mets have been trying to struggle with that because they had like Austin Jackson. They tried getting guys who were good defensive center fielders that couldn't hit. Now you have guys who maybe can hit a little bit better, but play still good defense.
Sure.
So the hope is they can stay healthy. The hope is their pitching, kind of rounds itself out. And everything kind of falls into place is the hope. But it's the Mets. And I don't know if that happens. I don't know if that happens with any, a lot of these teams. I say the same thing with the Yankees. I say the same thing with, any of these teams. You got to fall into place. But the Mets just have a bad aura in the past, 15 years around them. That this stuff just never works out.
I know.
But talent-wise, they have a great team. Definitely could push this division. Definitely could win this division. And should definitely be a wild card team. But you never know. That's the thing with the Mets. You definitely never know. But new ownership and stuff could definitely turn that. So, but to get into some of their prospects, shortstop Ronnie Mauricio, catcher Francisco Alvarez, which is always got to have. You always want to have a good prospect shortstop and prospect catchers. Third baseman Brett Beatty. Maybe they get the next David Wright. Who knows? Pitcher JT Ginn and pitcher Matthew Allen. So the farm system is not bad. Again, you probably heard me say this 1,000 times. They're probably in the just outside the top 10 farm system. I would say probably sitting right around 10th, somewhere in that area, maybe in the early teens, but definitely not a bad farm system. They have a good spread of positions, unlike the Nationals we've seen. Shortstop, catcher, third base, pitcher. So they have a good spread. And a team, like I said, has some serious talent. They just got to flow together. The manager's got to be able to handle it. They got to stay healthy. And, the New York lights just can't be too bright for some of these guys. So we'll see. Tough division, but Mets have a really good team, and they should be, should definitely show some excitement and bring some excitement to the fan base.
Agreed. You just don't know with the Mets anymore. You never know. Something always seems to happen, but we'll definitely say I do think that they should be a wild card team. They really should. But so that leaves the last team here that we haven't talked about, and that's the Braves. So the Braves projected starting lineup is Ronald Acuna Jr., Freddie Freeman, Marcell Ozuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Aussie Albies, Dansby Swanson, Austin Riley, and Christian Pache. And then the pitching spot, their projected rotation is Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Ian Anderson, Drew Smyly, and Kyle Wright. I think we both agree, and we kind of thought this last year with the Braves, I think that they are just about one of the better teams in baseball. I think they're fantastic. I think that they are underappreciated by a lot of critics and baseball writers. I think that they are usually given the second spot to the Mets here in the division, which isn't, it's not a bad take. It's not like the Mets aren't good. It's just, to me, I think that the Braves, they came, one game away from the World Series last year against the Dodgers, who ended up winning it. So, not for nothing, but that's pretty damn good. I think that they have an even better rotation this year because the rotation last year was just the biggest question mark they could have. You got guys like Kyle Wright and Ian Anderson, these young guys who are fantastic. Especially Ian Anderson. Then you pick up Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton's just talk about a guy you want in the playoffs. Fantastic. Max Fried's great, and Drew Smyly's a nice veteran guy that can fill out that rotation. So the rotation is just this year compared to last year infinitely better. I think that they're just fantastic. And what do you say about their lineup at this point? Ronald Acuna Jr. is one of the superstars of the game at this point and can just absolutely – he mashes the ball. I think he had the furthest home run last year, which is pretty unbelievable when you look at Acuna because he doesn't look like the guy that would hit like that, but he's just got such a nice swing. One of the best center fielders in baseball. And then right behind him, you have Freddie Freeman in the lineup. Freddie Freeman's just about one of the best first basemen in the league, if not the best first baseman in the league. I love Freddie Freeman. And then again, right behind him, you got Marcell Ozuna, who we thought was absolutely snubbed for a finalist, at least a finalist for MVP. Just about Triple Crown guy last year, even though it was a shortened season, just about Triple Crown. And in my opinion, should have been, at the very least, considered for MVP in the top three. Then you got, Aussie Albies at second is a fantastic switch hitter guy. Travis d'Arnaud has really turned it on in this kind of point in his career. Was kind of hitting and playing like he was supposed to when he was a prospect. Dansby Swanson just continues to get better, young guy. Austin Riley, you have some concerns about, but overall is pretty good. And Christian Pache, they compare to Andrew Jones an awful lot that I've heard. And although I have yet to really see anything like that, I think that if there are comparisons there, I'm sure there's where there's smoke, there's fire. And I think he could maybe play to some sort of level like that, where he's a good defender, good hitter, kind of a big guy in that lineup. So if you're because the 9th spot is the pitcher for the NL, but if your 8th guy is a guy that has been compared to Andrew Jones, I think you're doing okay. So the lineup's sick. The rotation, I think, just got better. And then when you go into the bullpen, you got guys like, I think that this might be a little bit more of a concern for them. Out of the bullpen, you got Will Smith, Chris Martin, Tyler Matzik, AJ Minter, Josh Tomlin. So these guys that are good, but not like, I wouldn't say that if I'm on the opposing team, I'm fearing these guys coming in. I think they're good, and I think they definitely have some value, and I think that they're going to close out quite a few games for this team, but I'm not super intimidated as for the Nationals now they have Brad Hand. For the Phillies, they got guys like Jose Alvarado. Like these guys are if they come out of the bullpen, for me, I'm kind of worried a little bit. So the bullpen, I think, is a little bit of a concern, but that's for a team like this, that's definitely something they can do for the trade deadline. Maybe even someone out there that they can go sign before the season starts. So there's definitely options with the bullpen. And then as far as depth, off the bench, you got guys like Ender Inciarte is although has been, has shown a little bit of struggles here, is great. Jake Lamb is a great guy to have off the bench. Yohan Camargo, these guys, add a lot to the two ladder guys, Lamb and Camargo, add a lot to the infield depth. And then Ender Inciarte, although Acuna and Ozuna are going to play most of the time, barring an injury, he could slot in and be a defensive replacement for Ozuna if he needs a day off. Because Ozuna obviously has had some fielding concerns, so he fills that role well. But, I can't say enough good things about this team. I think that they are appreciated, undervalued in a lot of projections. I think that they are short, they got the short end of the stick sometimes. And I don't see what people I don't understand what people are not seeing in this team. I think that they are bona fide, the most talented team in this division. They are probably a top 4, top 5 team in the league. You got other teams like the Yankees, Dodgers, White Sox, and Padres teams to worry about there. But I mean, like I said, this team came one game away from the World Series. That doesn't just happen, you know. That doesn't just fall out of the sky. I mean, this team is very good, and they will be good for a while, I think, here with the young guys like Albies and Acuna and Fried and Ian Anderson and Kyle Wright just coming up now. You know, I don't know what you don't like here. I don't know how you could possibly see them anything less than one of the best teams in the league. So, we both think very highly of the Braves. So I know that you're probably going to have a lot of the same sentiments here that I do, but I'm curious. And then I'm not sure where their prospect pool is at, so you'll have some more on that. So what are you kind of thinking? I know we agree that they probably got the most talent, but what are you kind of thinking?
Yeah, I mean the Braves have a great team. I think I want to just start with the Braves. The first thing I want to mention is that they lost a great leader to this team this year by not re-signing, and the decision by Nick Marchakis to retire. Nick Marchakis announced his retirement yesterday. I love Nick Marchakis, one of my favorite players. I was hoping he would just keep playing and get to that 3,000 hit mark and be a one-time All-Star, and people just didn't understand how he got there. But a great leader who really helped build this team and kind of was a benchmark, I guess you could say, or a backbone to this team, especially last year, even when he started the year not opting out. They struggled a bit, and then he came back, and that kind of was a turning point for them earlier in the year. So we'll see how that kind of affects them. But I mean, to get into the players, I mean, they got Soroka coming off of injury, so hopefully he's okay. He should be. Max Fried's fantastic, great young pitcher. Charlie Morton, veteran guy, especially good in the postseason. Ian Anderson, I mean, he literally was unbelievable in the postseason. So at the very least, you got a little, postseason, some postseason magic guys out there. Kyle Wright, as you mentioned, another young guy. I mean, their whole rotation here, unless Charlie, except Charlie Martin, are what, 25 years old, 26, 27 years old at the most.
Yeah, young guys.
Yeah, and then you got Drew Smiley. There's nothing wrong with Drew Smiley. He's been a pretty good pitcher for bullpen or starter, just kind of a guy you want,
Sure.
And we're gonna be like, I don't know about Drew Smiley. It's always like, yeah, I'll take him.
Yeah, sure.
Sort of starting rotation. And there's a little bit of questions because Soroka, coming off an injury, and then there's Anderson and Kyle Wright. They obviously pitched really well last year, and they can continue to build off of that. But the rotations is very, very young. Their rotation's not much of an issue. There's something they can make a move if they needed to. Maybe bring Cole Hamels back again, trade for a guy, so they could do some stuff there with them. But it's definitely not a big need for them. It's pretty solid. In the bullpen, you got Luke Jackson, who's been a closer for them in the past, pretty good pitcher. AJ Minter's been pretty good. Grant Dayton, again, pretty good. So, you got Sean Newcomb, who's been a starter and out of the bullpen. Either way, he's been a solid pitcher. Josh Tomlin, I believe that's what Chris Martin they have out there.
Yep.
So, I mean, they have a pretty good bullpen. Nothing's too special, but there's still bullpen guys out there, and they have the pieces to trade to go get a number one reliever if needed.
Yeah.
But their bullpen's definitely manageable. It holds up. It's middle of the pack for the NL and for the league probably. They lost Mark Melancon, which hurts. They lost Shane Green unless they sign him back at this point. That hurts them. But their bullpen is pretty much where it's been for the last couple of years. It's okay. It could get better, but it does the job. And their starting rotation has gotten better. So at the very least, your starting rotation got better, but the bullpen maybe still kind of sits in the same spot. They also have actually Bryce Wilson out there too, I believe, who's another pretty good pitcher, younger guy. So they're okay. They're okay. Bullpen wise, starting rotations definitely a lot better, but not bad. So their pitching's pretty solid. To get to their lineup, this is where this is their bread and butter. Travis Darno, who's really been a great player since leaving the Mets, oddly enough. Freddie Freeman, MVP. I mean, he's fantastic. One of the best players in baseball.
Yep.
One of the best defenders at first base.
Yep.
And one of the great guys you want on your team.
Sure.
Jake Lamb, he's a great bench player. It's definitely a good piece to grab because he's played well. And a couple years ago, he was really, really good in some injuries, but could play both corner positions, has some power. Aussie Albies, if he can keep that average up, he's been kind of struggling. His average hasn't been as high as you would really like it. Switch hitter. He's better from one side to the other side, but if he can, get his average back on track, he's a really good player, one of the best second basemen in baseball. Austin Riley, who was a top prospect, he can mash the ball. He has unbelievable power. My big concern there was I don't think he's that good defensively at third base, as we've seen, and he has a lot of swing and miss and stuff like that in his game. If he can cut down some of the swing and miss and progress at third base, obviously that's fine. But I thought the Braves should have made a move at third base to bring a third baseman in. And with the pieces they had, they could have made a move for like Arenado if they really wanted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the team is, he's fine over there. Riley's not bad. It's just, I thought, he's just got to cut down some of the swings and misses and work on his defense for sure.
Yeah.
Dansby Swanson has grown immensely. He's one of their best players. He's a great leader for them. Probably one of their best hitters on the team, Marcell Ozuna. I love Marcell Ozuna. Really was your NL MVP last year. He almost won a Triple Crown. He can mash the ball. He's got a sweet swing. It's just straight, a level swing, crushes the ball. Defensively, he's okay. He's probably maybe average, maybe just below average. Offensively, he's one of the better offensive players in baseball. But he's a real cog in the middle of the lineup. And then you have Acuna. I mean, all right.
Yeah, that's fine.
What's he? Top 5 hitters in all baseball. Top 5 players in all baseball.
Yeah.
Run, could play defense. He'll play multiple positions in the outfield. Power. I mean, just exactly what you want. I mean, he's fantastic. He's great. Yep. He's the Braves' Mike Trout. I mean, he's MVP candidate every year. He's gonna Freeman, Acuna, Freeman, Ozuna in the middle of the lineup, and then surround them with guys like Albies and Dansby Swanson and Austin Riley. I mean, you have 3 just super great hitters in the middle of the lineup, and then you have other guys who are good at their job, kind of offensive guys. So they have a great lineup. Inciarte coming off the bench or pinch running or pinch hitting. I mean, he's not bad. Defensively, he's very, very good. One of the better defender outfielders in the NL. He's just struggled offensively in the last couple of years, but definitely a good player to have. As you mentioned, Camargo off the bench, another guy who can play multiple positions. He's a pretty good player as well. He's still pretty young. So the team is built offensively. Their team is stacked. Starting rotation wise, the starting rotation is pretty good. It's young, so it definitely can grow. It could be a little bit better maybe, but their starting rotation could obviously, with some of these young guys like Anderson and Wright and how good they've pitched, that could be arguably the best rotation in baseball.
Sure, definitely.
The potential they have. Bullpen's okay. That's their one concern is probably their bullpen, but it's not bad. It's definitely serviceable. And with that offensive starting rotation, you definitely get by with that.
Oh yeah.
To get into some prospects, you mentioned Christian Pache or Pache. They talked about him, possibly being a starting outfielder. I could see that. That's fine. I didn't put him on the starters because I didn't really know where they were putting him, and I knew I was going to talk about him as a prospect. But his comparisons to Andrew Jones. So if he could just be, live up to some of those comparisons. I mean, geez, they have another great outfielder to add to the mix out there. Or, you can have some of these guys you could trade away for a reliever if needed, because they have another outfielder coming in Drew Waters.
That's right.
Fantastic.
Yep.
So you have great depth in the outfield. So someone who could be traded if needed for a relief pitcher or starter pitcher or both. Then pitcher Ian Anderson. As we talked about him, catcher Shea Langeliers. So gotta have a good prospect catcher. And then another catcher, William Contreras, who we know as Contreras is the Cubs. Contreras is his brother.
Yep.
And he's higher up prospect. So their farm system's still pretty good. Shea Waters, Anderson, Shea Langeliers. I mean, they have a pretty good farm system. It's not as great as it was. It was the number 1 farm system for like 8 years.
Yeah.
But I would say it's probably pretty close to a top 10 farm system, at least. I would say it's probably in the top 10. So the farm system is still great. The team is built still. The team is great. they can use somebody's farm system, somebody's bench guys. They can go get a couple pieces when needed, a couple free agents still. So they still have a lot of options they could do to build this team up even more. But this team is definitely a World Series contender. They should be able to take the NL East. They will have a fight on their hands for the NL East, but a division getting better, that's only going to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Help them be, oh, okay, I got it. We're playing playoff teams all year long. But the Braves are a really good team. Last year they're one game away, so you could pretty much, I would say you're pretty much, unless there's some crazy injuries or something, you could pretty much pencil them in at least to the NLCS. That's pretty much where this team is, and they're really World Series bound. And this could be a team that could be World Series bound for 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the Braves are great. I think they win the division. I mean, worst case for them, I think they're the number one wild card team. And I mean, if you win a division and somehow you get stuck having to face the Braves as a wild card team, that's just bad luck.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I mean, we definitely agree on them being the most talented team. Like we've talked about, the offense is sick. I think the top three guys, like you said, with Acuna, Freeman, and Ozuna, I don't know how much better you can get than that. Rotation literally just got better. So a team that just missed the World Series, in my opinion, just getting better. Obviously, shout out to Nick Marchakis retiring. Tremendous career. I think very underrated career. Obviously, that's like the biggest loss for them. But overall, I think they did nothing but get better. And they kind of did need to, because they do want to get over the hump, but they do also need to keep up a little bit. Mets made a flurry of moves with that new owner. So to keep up maybe even a little bit with them and stay atop of them, they had to do nothing but get better. So a lot of optimism for them, a lot of optimism, I think, for a lot of teams in the East here. Probably one of the better divisions in baseball, if not the best overall division. May not have the best team or teams. We're going to get to the NL West, might hold that crown with the top two teams. But overall, as a division, I think this might be the most talented division in baseball. And so I think a lot of these fan bases have a lot to look forward to. And I think that you could even look at maybe some, maybe not like a 100-win team or even a 98-win team, because I think a lot of these records for these teams are going to get cannibalized by each other. I think that all the teams are going to play each other hard, and I think that the division may even be closer than you think. So a lot to look forward to, and I think that I'm going to particularly keep an eye on this division. So that's kind of all I got on them. Like I said, shout out to Nick Marchakis. We both loved him, and the fact that he's retiring with one All-Star game is just, I don't know how that happened, but especially a guy, what is he? I think I've seen a statistic. He's 8th all time in right field appearances or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, longevity,
Yeah.
he's just fantastic.
Consistency, was there to get the ball. He was there to make the Orioles good. He was here when the Braves were bad to make them good.
Yeah.
15 seasons, one All-Star game, which was like 2 years ago. Just about 2,400 hits. He has the record for most innings or most appearances in right field without an error. One of the best defensive outfielders we've seen. Consistency was his big thing. He always was consistent. He was like a 280-something hitter every year, some home runs, stolen base here and there. I think he had a couple more years he could have played, and he could have got right up there at the 3,000 hit mark, and it would have been one of those guys. Do you put him in the Hall of Fame? Do these idiots that vote for this put him in the Hall of Fame, even though he has 3,000 hits, or they used to think, oh, well, he doesn't really look like a Hall of Famer? That stupid idea.
Yeah.
Because Nick Marchakis is a great guy, too, off the field. And, just a stat to leave you with him is he had more hits than he had swings and misses in his MLB career.
It's fantastic. How many people can say that,
Yeah. I mean, he had I think he had like 500 more hits than he had swings and misses. And I seen that on Twitter from Ryan Spader, who posts a lot of stuff about Nick Marchakis, because he loved Nick Marchakis too. So I seen those stats that he was posting, and that was one of them about his swings and misses. I believe someone else, some other places were posting that too. Some other things on Twitter mentioning his lack of swing and misses. That also counts foul tips into a glove. They consider as a swing and miss.
Oh, okay.
Those stats. So if you add those foul tips into the glove and swings and misses, he had about 500 more hits than those in his career, which is impressive.
That's awesome.
To just give you a little background, they didn't always have those stats. It's not something they always tracked. But when they started tracking those stats, I think Tony Gwynn had about 1,000 more hits than he had swings and misses.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the first guy I thought of.
But they didn't track it for his whole career. But from the part they did start tracking it, so to give you an idea, he had 1,000 and Marchakis had about 500. So obviously, I'm not saying he's Tony Gwynn, but it's that type of hitter.
Yeah. Yeah, yep. I mean, Nick Marchakis was awesome, and I wish him the best in retirement. So, but overall, I got nothing really else here. So unless you got a little bit more you want to add to any of these teams, I know you got the trivia question that we got.
Yeah. The only thing I can add is the NL East is one of the best divisions in all baseball, and it should be exciting to watch, especially being the NL East and all these teams, other than maybe the Marlins, are relatively close to where we live. Maybe the Braves. So we're kind of in this area where all these teams with these fan bases. So it's kind of exciting to see them battle.
Yeah, sure.
But to get to the trivia question this week, obviously keeping it relative to what we're talking about, I want to do who has the first hit in Marlins team history. Their first game was April 5th, 1993. Their first, regular season game. So you can take a look at some of those guys who are on that team, or think about who was on that team. But the first hit in Marlins history, again, April 5th, 1993, was Brett Barberie.
Yep.
There you go.
Him.
Yeah. That team has some guys on it too. As you know, they won the World Series a couple years, 4 years later, 5 years later, they won the World Series, or not five, a couple years later, they won the World Series. Edgar Renteria and the fellas. But I thought that was something that was a little bit of a surprising name, and something that a lot of our listeners probably remember, or maybe knew. So I wanted to keep it kind of relative to the episode.
Yeah, that's a good one. I had no idea. I didn't even have a guess. I don't know the Marlins history that well. Maybe hardcore baseball or Marlins fans could be able to get that, but I had no shot.
Yeah.
So that's a good one. But all right, that's all I kind of got for this episode. There's nothing really. I don't know if there's much new and noteworthy. I mean, obviously we got spring training baseball going on, and we're getting close here, so that's always something to be happy about. So unless you got any news you want to bring up or anything final, we'll just wrap this up.
No. The only thing I want to mention is, yes, spring training baseball is here and playing, and that's great. And regular season baseball is right around the corner. Warm weather. MLB show will be coming out in about a month, and fantasy baseball or fantasy league starting in a couple of weeks, so we'll have that draft, so that'll be fun. But yeah, we just we got delayed with this episode with some technical stuff and some issues, so we'll have this posted. I'm not sure exactly when this, but we'll have both episodes this week posted. So
yeah,
and then after this week we should be back. We should be able to figure it all out and be back to normal.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah.
But yeah, if you have any issues or questions, or wondering what's going on, you can just check our Twitter or Facebook. I think we have posts on there kind of explaining it and when we're going to do things. But we'll be the episodes will stay the same. We'll be Skype next time too. But next week we'll be kind of back to normal.
Yep. Yeah, I'll try to get this episode up as soon as possible, and then yeah, we'll be kind of back on a normal schedule after that. So not too much to worry about. Just some you know how it is. If anyone out there records a podcast for yourself, you kind of know how it is. So that's kind of it. That's all I got for the East in this episode. So all right, guys, thank you for listening. You can listen to this podcast on Apple Podcasts as well as Google Podcasts and Spotify. You can listen to this podcast on our regularly updated YouTube channel, as well as our website, screwball.podbean.com. You can follow me on Twitter at RealMikeLepre. You can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lepre.
And you can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at FTubs10.
You can follow our official Screwball Twitter at ScrewballPod. You can follow our official Screwball Facebook at ScrewballPod, no E in Screw. And that's it from us, guys. We'll see you next week.
Yep, take care.